Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to talk about a development in international relations that has the potential to shape not only bilateral ties between two important nations, but also influence the broader global political landscape. Canada and India, two democracies separated by thousands of miles, yet bound by deep people-to-people connections, have taken a significant step forward. After months of tension, misunderstandings, and even accusations that made global headlines, both countries have now appointed new envoys to each other's capitals. On the surface, it may sound like a routine diplomatic move. But when we peel back the layers, this decision tells us a story of diplomacy, resilience, strategy, and the possibility of turning conflict into cooperation. And my friends, that's what makes this moment not just newsworthy, but historic. Think back to the events of the past year. Relations between Ottawa and New Delhi were at one of their lowest points in decades. Public statements from leaders were sharp. Diplomatic expulsions made headlines. And accusations cast shadows over a partnership that had once been celebrated as a model for multicultural engagement. Many observers predicted that the chill could last for years, if not longer. But international politics is never static. Nations, like people, are compelled to adapt, to reassess, and sometimes to rebuild. The appointment of new envoys is not just a formal exchange of ambassadors. It is a symbolic reset button. It tells the world that both sides are willing to open channels to talk and to test whether trust can be rebuilt brick by brick. But let us not underestimate what it means in practice. In diplomacy, the presence of a strong envoy in the capital of a foreign country can change the dynamics dramatically. An ambassador is not just a messenger. He or she is a strategist, a negotiator, a listener, and often the face of a nation in foreign eyes. By agreeing to send seasoned diplomats to each other's countries at this sensitive moment, India and Canada are signaling that the door is not closed. They are saying dialogue is possible and perhaps even necessary. Now, you may ask, why is this significant for ordinary citizens? Why should the average person care whether Canada and India exchange envoys? The answer lies in the multiple layers of connection that bind these two societies. There are over 1.6 million people of Indian origin living in Canada. They form one of the largest and most vibrant diaspora communities in the world. They are not just passive participants. They shape Canada's economy, politics, culture, and daily life. From business leaders to politicians, from artists to doctors, the Indian community has left its mark on Canadian soil. At the same time, Canadian businesses, universities, and technology sectors see India as a key partner in the 21st century. Student exchanges, trade deals, technology collaboration, and even cultural exchanges all depend on the health of the diplomatic relationship. So when ties freeze, it is not just about governments arguing. It is about families worrying, businesses hesitating, and opportunities being lost. And when ties thaw, when diplomats are sent back, when engagement resumes, it creates a ripple effect of optimism. It tells businesses that deals might move forward again. It reassures students that their academic pathways are safe. It tells the diaspora that bridges are being rebuilt rather than burned. Ladies and gentlemen, when we analyze this moment more closely, we realize that it is not only about repairing relations between two governments. It is about sending a message to the world that dialogue and diplomacy can prevail even after sharp conflicts. Let's pause and reflect on what the past months have shown us. We saw a diplomatic freeze so severe that many experts feared the relationship was irreparably damaged. Yet here we are, witnessing a cautious but clear effort to move forward. That tells us something important. Nations act not only out of emotion, but out of necessity. And the necessity here is mutual benefit. Let us talk about the Indian diaspora in Canada. With more than 1.6 million people of Indian origin, this community is not only one of the largest in Canada, but also one of the most influential. They are entrepreneurs, scientists, doctors, engineers, artists, and politicians. They contribute immensely to the Canadian economy and society. But beyond statistics, they carry cultural and emotional connections to India. When relations between India and Canada soured, it wasn't just diplomats who felt the strain, it was ordinary families. Community events became cautious, students became nervous, and even businesses began to ask, what does this mean for us? Now, with the appointment of envoys, there is a sense of relief. There is hope that issues can be resolved, that misunderstandings can be clarified, and that the diaspora can continue to thrive without being caught in the crossfire of politics. On the Indian side, too, this relationship matters deeply. India has long valued Canada as a partner in education, science, and technology. Canadian universities attract tens of thousands of Indian students every year, creating an academic bond that enriches both societies. In fact, for many Indian families, sending children to study in Canada is a dream, a pathway to global exposure and professional success. But when ties weakened, that dream was overshadowed by uncertainty. Parents worried, would visas become harder to obtain? Would Canadian institutions lose their welcoming spirit? The reestablishment of diplomatic presence reassures them. It tells them, yes, challenges remain, but the door to opportunity is still open. And let's not forget the role of trade and commerce. Canada is rich in natural resources, energy, minerals, agriculture, while India is a rapidly expanding market, hungry for investment, technology, and resources. There is a natural complementarity here. When diplomatic channels are open, businesses feel confident to explore new ventures. Trade talks that were stalled can now resume. Investors who were hesitant may now re-engage. A single envoy can unlock countless doors by creating trust, clarifying policy, and smoothing out obstacles. That is the power of diplomacy. But of course, we must be realistic. The appointment of envoys is not a magic solution. The differences that exist between India and Canada are serious. Let's face it, India has repeatedly expressed concern about extremist elements operating in Canada, particularly those supporting separatist ideologies. From India's perspective, this is not merely a matter of political disagreement. It is about national security and sovereignty. Canada, on the other hand, emphasizes freedom of expression and the rights of its citizens, even when their views are controversial. These positions are not easily reconciled. So, how do we move forward? The answer lies in diplomacy, in quiet conversations that seek common ground, and in the willingness to listen as much as to speak. Friends, as we arrive at the conclusion of this long reflection, let us widen our perspective. The appointment of new envoys is more than a matter of protocol, is a signal about how nations choose to write the next chapter of their shared story. Canada and India are not just distant partners. They are linked through history, migration, values, and aspirations. And this new phase tells us that, despite conflicts, despite harsh words in the past, the relationship has the resilience to heal. Think about the message it sends to the youth. For young Canadians of Indian origin, this development means they can look with pride at both their homelands. They no longer have to carry the burden of strained ties in their identities. They can see themselves as bridges rather than as victims of politics. For young Indians studying in Canada, it means a sense of security that their futures will not be clouded by uncertainty or political rifts. For young Canadians curious about India's growth story, it means a more welcoming environment to engage, learn, and collaborate. The symbolic power of appointing envoys goes far beyond the walls of embassies, inspires the next generation to believe in the possibilities of cooperation. But let us not forget, this moment also sets a challenge. Appointing envoys is the first step, but sustaining improved ties requires patience, skill, and political will. Both sides will need to resist the temptation of quick confrontations. Both will need to prioritize dialogue over rhetoric. And both will need to remember that the cost of estrangement is always higher than the cost of compromise. The question that lingers is this: will the relationship truly improve, or will this only be a temporary pause before another storm? The answer depends not only on governments but also on societies. The diaspora must play a constructive role, promoting dialogue rather than division. The media must highlight cooperation as much as conflict. Businesses must push for pragmatic engagement, reminding leaders of the opportunities at stake. Universities must expand exchanges that deepen understanding. Civil society must create cultural spaces where people can connect as humans first, not as representatives of rival narratives. Let us also reflect on the global stage once more. India's rise as a global power is one of the defining stories of our time. Canada's role as a middle power committed to multilateralism is also crucial. When these two countries align, they can influence discussions on trade fairness, climate action, technology, ethics, and global governance. A strong relationship between them can amplify their voices in international forums. From the United Nations to the G20. Conversely, a weak relationship diminishes their impact. That is why this envoy exchange is not just bilateral housekeeping, it is global positioning. So tonight, as we reflect on this news, let us feel not only relief, but also responsibility. Relief that dialogue is resuming, and responsibility to support it. Whether as members of the diaspora, as students, as business leaders, or as ordinary citizens, we each have a role to play in fostering ties. Let us choose to engage, to learn, to respect, and to advocate for cooperation. In the end, the story of India and Canada is not one of rivalry, but of potential partnership. It is not one of permanent division, but of temporary misunderstanding. And the appointment of new envoys is proof that even after darkness, the light of diplomacy can shine again. Let us welcome this new beginning with cautious optimism. Let us encourage our leaders to be wise, our envoys to be skillful, and our societies to be open-hearted. And let us believe that this chapter, written in dialogue rather than discord, will strengthen not only India and Canada, but also the wider world. Thank you.